Imagine waking up one morning, walking to your window, and seeing not a round horizon, but a corner. That's right. A hard, solid 90-degree corner staring at you from the edge of the Earth. Because in this universe, Earth isn't a sphere. It's a giant cube. First of all, let's talk gravity. On a round Earth, gravity pulls everything toward the center. Simple, neat, balanced. But on a cube-shaped planet, things get weird fast. The center of gravity would still be in the middle of the cube, deep inside. So if you lived on one of the 6 flat faces of the cube, you'd feel fairly normal. Gravity would pull you straight down. But try walking toward the edge of that face. Suddenly the pull would start to feel sideways. The ground would seem to slope up, even though it's flat. You'd start leaning forward to stay upright. And if you kept going toward the corner, eventually you'd feel like you were climbing a wall. And people on the next face would look like they're walking vertically up a building. Now, imagine the corners. The cube has 8 of them, each like a pointy mountain where 3 faces meet. Gravity there would pull you toward the center of the cube. But from that corner down would feel like it's pulling you in 3 directions at once. Your feet wouldn't know where to stand. You'd probably just float awkwardly, doing accidental somersaults until you slid down one of the faces and finally hit a zone with normal gravity again. That is, if you survived the corner vortex. But it doesn't stop there. Think about sunlight. On a round Earth, the sun shines evenly as the planet rotates. But a cube is like a massive dice in space. As it rotates, only one face is lit at a time. That means day and night would be drastically different. One face would have full sunlight, another would be in pitch black darkness, and the ones in between would have strange, slanted shadows like eternal sunsets. Some places would bake, others would freeze, and some unlucky towns would live in permanent twilight. Good luck growing tomatoes there. Also, seasons gone, or at least totally broken. The tilt of Earth's axis is what gives us spring, summer, fall, and winter. On cube Earth, that tilt wouldn't work the same way. Each face would have its own weird version of a year, with uneven lengths and unpredictable climates. You might get 6 months of blizzards, followed by 10 days of lava rain. Weather forecasts would just say, we give up. Let's talk about oceans. On round Earth, gravity pulls water into a big blue ball. But on cube Earth, oceans would gather in the center of each face, forming shallow seas. As you move toward the edges, the water would thin out, like a bowl. The corners and edges would be dry, jagged, possibly even desert-like. And if you stood on one of the edges, you could literally look down into the ocean hundreds of miles below. It would be both majestic and absolutely terrifying. How about travel? Planes would have to climb up or down just to cross from one face to another. Airports would need ramps like skateboard parks. GPS would constantly lose its mind. And walking from one continent to another might feel like climbing a cliff, even though you're technically walking straight. Animals would evolve differently, too. Birds might avoid edges entirely, afraid of disorienting gravity. Humans? We'd probably build whole cities near the center of each face, where gravity is stable and sunlight is predictable. Edge towns would be for thrill seekers and weird scientists. Hey, honey, let's move to the edge. The sunsets are beautiful, and the gravity is confusing. Now imagine space launches. Rockets would have to be aimed very carefully, launch from the center of a face, and you're fine. Launch from a corner, you might just spin off in the wrong direction and end up in a black hole. Or Pluto's living room. And don't even get me started on satellites. On round Earth, they orbit smoothly. On cube Earth, they'd probably get yanked in odd directions by shifting gravity. Weather satellites would show broken data, and GPS would point you to your neighbor's fridge, again. And then there's the social stuff. Would cube-shaped Earth change our beliefs? Our flags? Would we still use the phrase around the world? Or would we say across the faces of the cube? Maybe we'd name countries after dice rolls. I live on phase 3, near edge 5. Over time, we might adapt, maybe even love it. Kids would grow up learning gravity's weird tricks. Skateboarders would perform anti-gravity flips near corners. Roller coasters would go over cube edges. Scientists would map gravitational anomalies and corner warps. Architects would design buildings that lean at 45 degrees and somehow still feel upright inside. In a way, maybe cube Earth would teach us more about the universe than a round one ever could. It would show us that even something as basic as down is just an illusion. That the universe doesn't have to make sense to be beautiful. And that even on a strange, uneven, mind-bending planet, life always finds a way. So next time you look out your window and see the nice, calm curve of our spherical Earth, be glad it's not a cube. But if it ever is, don't forget to pack rope. You might need to climb to school tomorrow.